Welcome to the channel, Infinite Exploit, where we learn and have fun. Let's get started and Brody, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Love you guys.
So now we're going to learn one of the most powerful programming languages out there, which is Python. So we can download Python by going to their website, downloads, and there's two major versions, version 2 and version 3. So right now on their website, we just have the version 3, it's the most updated. But as you can see, it has older releases here, just in case you need to run version 2 as well, you can download it. So I already got it downloaded on my machine, and you want to go here to get Visual Studio Code. That's going to be our text editor. And the reason why I like this one is because it has a lot of different capabilities, such as autocomplete, syntax highlighting, etc. So once you install your IDE and open it up, you'll be prompted with a screen. And you can go ahead and open up a new tab by clicking here. I already named mine word.py, but you can name it whatever you want as long as it has the .py extension, because this is Python. If you want to change the theme, you can go here, theme, color scheme, and change it to whatever mode that you like. Another thing too I want to go over with you is you want to do terminal. You can do new terminal split. That's the console. That's where we're going to be printing out our code when we run it. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and write in this file, and it's going to have a bunch of Python code inside of it. Okay, and basically what we're doing is we're just giving the computer a set of instructions. That's really what we're doing. That's really what programming is. So we're specifying a set of instructions, and the computer is going to go up and execute those instructions that we give it. So the more complex the instructions, the more complex the task the computer can carry out. So I'm going to show you how we can use some Python code to do a simple Python program. So we can go ahead and use the print statement, and we can do hello from infinite, and we can do save, and I'll do Python word.py, and you see hello from infinite, right? So in this video, I'm going to talk about using variables in Python. So in Python, you're going to be dealing with a lot of data, and we'll be working with a lot of information, data, and value. And sometimes it can be difficult to manage. So we have this thing called a variable, which is a container that we can store certain data values. And we use a variable when we put those data values inside of a container. It makes it a lot easier to manage. So it's very extremely helpful, and is one of the core topics in Python. So I'm going to teach you everything that you need to get started with variables. I'm going to also tell you what kind of data you can store inside of the variable as well. So right here I have a basic Python program. It's basically just saying hello from Infinite. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to Infinite channel. Thanks for watching it, and Infinite really appreciate it. So just a couple lines. Let me go ahead and run that so you can see it's valid. I can go ahead and run it. As you can see here, it prints out and it looks great. So let's say inside of these, maybe I want to change it from infinite to exploit. Maybe I wanted to change and into an ampersand. I would have to go in and manually change this everywhere in this program, and it'll still run the same. However, just imagine if you had 100 lines of code. That could be a very tedious task. So that's what variables come into place. So that way we can go ahead and change it. And we also want to do it more convenient. So I'm going to teach you how to create a variable and what kind of data can be stored into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a variable. So I'm going to do channel underscore name, and I'm going to make it equal to infinite, right? So I stored the channel name. It makes it a lot easier to put this inside our program. And I'm going to do noun underscore change, and I'm going to do, so I give it a couple things. I give the name of the variable, and I did equal to assign it to the name infinite. So I did another variable called noun underscore change equal to an ampersand. So you want to separate different words with an underscore, okay? and I put that value inside of there, and I put it in quotations because it's a string variable. Okay, so so below this, like we said, we have now underscore change equal to an ampersand. Okay, so we got two variables, one representing the noun change that we're going to do, and one representing the channel name. So if I want to put a variable here, I will have to end off this text. So I have to put a quotation here. I'm wrapping all of this into a single quote. Okay, so I'm gonna do another quotation here, and inside of here, instead of saying the channel name, I need to go ahead and add a plus to append, and I want to print out all this says plus what's in channel name plus. So let's see. So when I run it, it's want to print out the value inside of channel name. So I can do that for every instance of the channel name in here, right? So I can do it here, and I can do the same thing for an ampersand as well. Right? Plus, so I do my quotations here. And remember, we're appending, so we're adding text. So I do plus, right? Plus channel name, and plus that text right there. All right, and we run it. Let me put a space right there, so that way it looks neat. See, thanks for watching. So we have ampersand. So we have the noun, and we have the channel name. So I don't have to type in the channel name and the noun change. I just put in the variable, okay? So if I want to change it, so let's say I want to change it to sniper, and right, it's going to change it, right? So if I clear, it's going to change it, right? So this is a great way to modify and change data here, okay? So what if I wanted to change the channel name? I just have to give it a different value right here, okay? So I could change it here, and if I want to change it here, I could change it in the first part, and I can change it back here, right? So see, so I updated the variable inside of my program, and that's an awesome way to modify the variable, and you could do it just like that. Now I'm gonna talk about the different types of data I can store inside of here. So I'm storing strings inside of these variables right now. A string is basically just a plain text. Now these are strings as well. It's going to store plain text, okay? Yeah, you can store that inside of a string. You can also store numbers inside of here. So if I wanted to change sniper and I want to do, I could type out 007, right? can do 7. So let's okay. So this is what I would have to do. So this is what I would have to do here. I would have to, since this is a string right here, and this is a number, I'm going to have to use a function, right? I'm going to have to use a function to convert this to a string. Okay. So let's see. Let's see here. All right. All right. So I will have to use this function so that way it knows to take this and convert it into a string because I have strings in the text as well. Okay. I can use I can do Boolean values, so I can do true or false, right? Capital, right? And I can do false as well. In programming, you have a true or false all the time. Okay. So we have strings, which is plain text. We can do numbers and we can do true or false values as well. Okay. You'll usually be dealing with these three types of data. Okay. All right. So we're gonna work with strings a lot in Python. So we talked about it, it's just plain text. So I'm gonna talk about multiple things we can do with strings, okay? And why they're important. So I'm gonna print another string here. I'm gonna so inside these quotation parts, I can put whatever text I want. So I could say hello all, right? So if I wanted to create a new line, I can do \n. And you see it's highlighted in a different color. So it's going to say hello on one line and all on the other. So I do. Right. I can also use a backslash quotation mark. And I can't put another quotation mark like this because it's going to think I'm trying to end this string. This is the escape character. Okay. It's just saying whatever character comes after this, it just saying, hey, I want to go ahead and print out a quotation. Okay. So if I wanted to run it again, as you see here, so if I want to use backslash, it'll print out the backslash as well. Okay. So I can create a string variable as well. So 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 if I want to do a phrase and I want to do please subscribe, I can go ahead and use concatenation. So what I can do is I can do phrase, and this is going to be concatenated, right? Just put it in together. So let me go and do a space right here, so that way it won't be all together like that. All right. So I can use a function called phrase.lower, and I can convert it into lowercase. Okay. I can do phrase.upper to change it, convert it into uppercase as well. So it's already lowercase. It did this, but I can change it to upper too. Okay. All right. So so I can do phrase.upper, and it's going to convert it into uppercase. And I can also do the is upper function, and it should give a true value, right? And they can use functions one after another, and it should come out print true. Let's see here. So let me go ahead and let's see. And as you see that it highlights red when it's not recognizing what's going on. Okay, right. So it lets you know where your error is at. Right. So when I convert it into upper, I can see if it's entire uppercase or lower. Right. So if it's entirely uppercase, it'll say true. If it's not, it'll say false. Okay. So this is a function that's in combination with another. Okay. So let me go ahead and put my parentheses here. So that way it'll run successfully there because that error is clear. It says true. You can use functions one after another. We can also figure out the length of the string. So if I wanted to figure out how many characters in here, I can do len, which is a function that finds the length of the characters there. So I'm going to put phrase and then to tell me how many characters in here. So if I go Python, it's 16 characters. That's how we get the length of a string. Okay. We can also get individual characters out of the string. So what if I wanted to find what number or what number character this is? I would do I would have to use brackets, right? And I would have to do 0. Now in Python, indexes start at 0. They counter start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So for example, when it counts 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's how it counts. Most programming languages do that. All right. So if I want to access that, it should say P. All right. All right. So this is very useful if you're trying to grab a specific character in Python. Okay. So it's in. I can also use the index function, right? And it can tell me exactly where it is in here. So I can pass a parameter. You're gonna hear that word a lot. So if I do P, it should return 0 because it's the first character, right? 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 You can also put words in here. So if I do sub, it'll tell me where it starts inside of the string. So it'll be 7, okay? Right? 5, 6, 7. So this spaces count as a index as well, okay? So if I do something that's not in there, like say I do X, it should give an error because that's not in there, right? Substring not found, right? I can also do a replace function. So so if I want to replace subscribe with comment, right? I can do that, right? So it should say please comment. So you want to get very comfortable with strings because you're going to be working with them a lot as well. Now, numbers is one of the most common data types in Python as well. So I'm going to talk to you about it, about using numbers. And I want to also show you some functions that you can use with numbers in Python as well, doing some mathematical operations. I'm going to show all this to you. So let's go ahead. So if you want to print a number, you can be like print 5. It's going to print 5. It's going to be a whole number. I can use decimal too. So 1008 and then the print. And it can do negative numbers as well. So if I want to do -7, I can do basic addition, subtraction, multiplication. So 5 plus 5, it should give 10. You can do pretty much anything you want. So we can do this wildcard or asterisk for multiplication. So it can do order operations as well. Okay. So I could put parentheses around 5 times 5. So that way it'll specify order operations, right? I'm sorry, let's do it like this. So it's lighting up red, so it's gonna give me an error. Let's see. So let's see. This should do this first, right? 10, then times 5. So let's run it. So 50, okay? So we also have another operation called modulus. So I could do 25% sign 5, and it's read 25 mod 5. And it's going to take this divided by this, and it's going to spit out the remainder. So it's no remainder, right? So let me save it. I'm sorry, it's giving the old one. So 0, right? And I can I can also store this in a variable. So if I do my underscore num, I can do 60, and I can do print my num, right? And it's going to print it 60. So I also can use this string function that we used previously, and it'll convert this into a string. Okay. So instead of printing out as a number, it's going to print it out as a string. Okay. Now, this comes in handy when you want to print numbers alongside strings. Okay. So if I wanted to do is the worst number, right? So, right. So if I don't use this, it's going to throw an error. Okay. There's a lot of different malfunction we can use on numbers as well. So, right. It can also give us information. So I'm going to show you some of the most common functions related to numbers. So we can get the absolute value with ABS. So what if I want to make this negative 60 and I want to do ABS? It's going to give me the absolute value of this number. 60 is the absolute value, right? So I can do power, right? So I can put in a number, and I can do 3 raised to the power of 2, right? Which is 9. I can pass in 4 pass to the power of 5. So it's used to take numbers to specific powers, okay? So this max function would tell us the whichever number is higher. So it should pull out 5. I can do min. It is going to print out the smallest number out of these two, 4. So I can round up numbers with the round function. So if I do 46.2, it should say 46, right? If I do 8, it should say 47. Okay. So we can also import external code, right? So I can use from math import start. It grabs a bunch of math functions. It's a bunch of other math functions that I can pull. So I can access a lot of other functions. So if I do print floor, I can go ahead and print the lowest number out of these. So 4. So I can also do seal, which do the opposite, right? I can do the square root as well. So if I do square root of 25, right, it should get 5. Now, this is a math module. It just gives us a lot more math functions, okay? And it's a bunch of different malfunctions in Python, and you can search for more online. These are some of the most commonly used. It's tons of documentations on these malfunctions as well that you can use inside of your program. But that's just a little bit about using numbers. So now we're going to talk about get input from a user. So we're going to allow user to input information into our program. So I'm going to store it inside of a variable, and I'm going to show you how we can get input from someone. So in the Python file, I just type in input and then open and close parentheses. It's going to tell Python, hey, I want to get input from the user. So it'll let the user type in some information. Okay. So if you want to have them enter in information, you got to tell them what you want. So I'm going to say, what channel is this? So we're going to store that into a variable. Okay. So I'm going to do channel name, and it's going to be equal to input. So it's going to take the input that the user put in, and it's going to take it. So what we can do is do print. I could say, all right. So what I'm going to do is going to take an input. What channel is this? And it's going to say subscribe. And I'm going to say subscribe to plus, which is appending channel name plus, right? And we can run this. All right. So run it down here. So what channel is this? We could say infinite exploit, and it say subscribe to infinite exploit. Now, reason why it's running together like that is because I didn't put a space. Let's rerun it where it looks better. Okay. All right. So that's the prompt that is giving us what channel is this. So Python stores that value inside of a variable, and we can prompt the user to put in more than one information. So if I copy this, what if I want them to enter another variable? And I want to say, and I'm going to say age. What is your age? So I can get the name of the channel and age. So if I run it, I say infinite, and I say 20. So it can use that. It'll make these programs more interactive. So it basically just getting these inputs, and you can do a lot of different awesome things with it. But when you're dealing with a large amount of data, you want to make sure that you can manage it and organize it properly. So a list is basically a structure that can list a lot of information. It allows us to organize it and keep track of them. So we'll create a Python list to put a lot of related values in the list. So I'm going to show you a basic and tell you why they're useful. So we're going to do it like a normal Python variable. So I'm going to do video underscore games, and I'm going to do, so I'm going to do Zelda. We use the open and close square brackets. So that way Python knows we're trying to store a lot of data. Okay. So Mortal Kombat. And I'll do Pac-Man. So we have 3 names in our array. So we can store multiple items inside this array, right? So inside this video game variable, we have a lot of different items in there. So we can put strings, numbers, and booleans in here as well. So I could change this to a number. I could change this to a boolean, right? So let's change it back just for now. So how can we access? So we can print out the actual list. So if I do print video games, and I do, if I want to print out a specific element, I can refer to it by this index. So the index starts at 0. So this is 0, 1, 2. So Zelda has an index 0, Mortal Kombat index of 1, Pac-Man index of 3. So since this is taking the third element, it has an index of 2. So it goes 0, 1, 2. So if I wanted to access it, I can I'm going to do an open and close square bracket, and I'm going to put the index of it. So if I want to do access Zelda, I can put 0, and then when I run the program, it's going to print out Zelda. If I wanted to access Mortal Kombat, I put 1. We can also access index from the back. So if we do -1, it'll give me Pac-Man. So if we do negatives, it index from the back of the list, right? So keep in mind, it's interesting in Python. So we say this is 0, but the first in the back is -1, right? So we can access portions of the list. So what if I want these last two? I can do 1 with a colon. So it'll go 1 and then gets the rest, right? So if I want to also do a range, right? Let's do, it'll grab, let's see, if I do 1, 3, this will be a range. So it gets 1 and this one as well, right? So what if I wanted to change a value? So I can do video games and I can modify this one, and I can actually change Zelda to a different name. Let's call it Candy Crush, right? And let's run it. I'm sorry. Let's look for 0, and it should put it up there. Okay. Yep. So this is like the basics of working with a list. So now we're going to go over list functions. Okay. So a list is one of the most important structures that we can store our information in Python. Okay. We can take a bunch of different values and organize them and store them in their own list structure. So let's do another list. I'm gonna call it game price, and I'm gonna put numbers in this one. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many do I have? So just do 4. Okay. All right. So that way I have 2 variables, and these just represent small prices. So so then this is strings. So they have a lot of different values. I can store hundreds of thousands of millions of values, right? They're so important. So it's a lot of different functions we can use with lists. So we can modify the list, get information from the list. So in this video, I want to just show you some of the most common and popular functions you will use to make the list more powerful. So you can print it out. So if I want to print it out, or print out that one. So I can also, so I can extend, and I can append this list to that list by doing video games that's just thin, and it's going to give me both. Okay. So it adds 2 lists together, right? So I can append as well. So if I want to append, let's say I want to add another game to the end of the list, I'm going to call it Grand Theft Auto. It always added to the end. It's another list function called insert if I want to add it into the middle or something like that. So it's going to take 2 parameters. I want to put it at number 1, and I want the value to be, I want it to be Creed, right? And it's going to push everything else to the right, right? So I can also remove. So I want to remove this one. So so if I wanted to remove, since I didn't keep it at it, what if I want to remove Pac-Man since it's already in there as well? Let's see. See it removed it. Okay. So if I want to reset the list, I can do video games clear, and it will get rid of everything. We can also do pop. It'll it'll pop an item off of the list. So it'll get rid of the last item of the list. So it got rid of Mario. So what if we wanted to figure out if a certain value was in this list? So what if I want to see if Mortal Kombat was in this list? So I can do video games dot index, and I'm gonna do Mortal Kombat, and it's gonna tell me if Mortal Kombat is in there. So it should say one. Let's see. Let's see. I want to print this. Mhm. And now it should print one. Okay, since it's the next one. So that's an easy way to see where that element is in your list, right? So what if I had two Pac-Mans, right? And I can do count, and it should say two, and it should say two. All right, so I'm saving it. Didn't put my comma. Sorry. So there's no error in the code, but yeah, so it says two. So I can also sort the list, right? It's going to put it in alphabetical order. Okay. So if I do video games that sort, and then I print video games, it should be in alphabetical order now. So let's see. As you see, it's in alphabetical order. So it went from being just random to an alphabetical order. So I can, this is already in order as well. Yeah. Yeah. We can also reverse a list as well. So if I do reverse, it reversed the order. So it goes the other way, as you can see here. All right. So I can also create another list, and I can copy it as well. So I can name it video games 2, and I can make it equal to, and I can make it video games copy, and it's going to be a copy. It's going to have the same attributes. It took a copy of it, right? It can come in handy as well. So it just gets your feet wet in working with lists. The more comfortable you get, this is like the basic concepts. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about tuples. It's a type of data structure. It's a container where we can store different values. So if you're familiar with lists, it's similar to a list, but a tuple has a few differences. So the first thing, I want to show you how to create a tuple. So I can create a tuple. One of the most common examples is a coordinate. So I can create a variable. I can do open, close, parentheses, right? And I can put the values. I could put list of numbers. So I can do 6 and 7. So this is my tuple. Now a tuple is immutable. So that just means it cannot be changed or modified. So once we create it up here, we can't change it, we can't modify it, we can erase elements, we can't do anything. What you see is what you get. You cannot change it. So if I print it, the attributes inside of it. So I can pass in an index. So this is be technically at 0 and this will be at 1. So if I do 0, it'll print out 6. Right? And if I do 1, it'll print out 7. So I can access the element inside of that tuple. So what if I try to do coordinates 1 and I want to change it to 12? It's going to give an error, right? Because they're immutable. It does not support that. So a list is pretty much doing the same thing, but they're using square brackets like this instead of parentheses, right? But with the tuple, we cannot do that. So that's one of the basic differences between a list and a tuple. So you're going to use tuple when the data does not need to be changed or mutated, okay? So once you have coordinates, you're probably not going to modify that, okay? So I can create a list of tuples, you know. So inside of here, I can do, most of the time you'll be using a list, but this will be a list with tuples inside of them, okay? So there's some basics about tuples, about lists and tuples. So it's a great thing to add. So now we're going to use functions in Python. It's basically a collection of code that performs a specific task. So if we want to go, if we want to do something, a specific task, we can call a function. So a lot of times you want to break up your code into different chunks. So it's a very cool concept in Python. So I'm going to teach you how to create one. So what if we want to create one that says subscribe, right? So if I want to write a function, I want to use a keyword called def, def. So when Python see this, it says, hey, this person want to use a function. So now we want to give it a name. So when we do variables, we create names. We want to do the same thing with functions as well. So I'm going to say subscribe me, right? So I can do it just like that. And I'm going to do a colon. So it's going to say all the code that comes after this line will be inside this function. All right. So when I hit enter, it automatically indented. So automatically use the indented. So the code that goes inside the function will be indented. So if I write code out here, it's not going to be inside of this function. Okay. So all of this this indentation level is inside the function, right? So it's going to say print, and it's going to say subscribe, subscribe. And if we want to call this function, if I run it as is now, it's not printing out anything. It's not doing anything. So it's not going to get executed by default. It's only going to get executed when you call it. So we basically do put in its name and open and close parentheses. Now when we save it and we run it, it's going to say subscribe. So so if I go top and I'm going to do bottom. So it say hey, it goes top, and it's going to look for everything in this function, and it's going to jump back down here and read bottom. So that's kind of how the flow of a function works. So when you name your functions, you want it to usually be named in all lowercase. So if I want to do this, I can use that naming convention, and it's still a run. Okay. So when when we write a function, we want to give it parameters, right? So I could put some parameters in here. I could say, hey, I want you to give us some information. So I can type out the name of the parameter that I want to receive. So if I could say, if I say name, that way when I call this function, I have to put a name in there. So I could say infinite. All right. And when I run this program, I can go ahead and rerun it. All right. And I can include more than one parameter. I can include as many as I want. Right. So this is a simple example how a function will work in Python. So I also can put in numbers um, as well. So essentially, we're writing out this, just subscribing to this parameter. So that's the beauty of using a function. So I also can pass in integer. So I would have to convert. If I did change it to a number, I would have to use string, right? Like we talked about. You can pass any type of data into a function. That's the basics of a function. So you're going to use functions more and more. So it's good to break your code up into multiple functions. So so I'm also go over the return statement, right? It's a collection of Python code to perform a specific task and want to call a function, right? But sometimes we want to get information back from the function. So I wanted to execute a task, and then I wanted to give me some information back. So it can be giving me value, could tell me how the task went. Here's the information. So that's what the return keyword allows me to do. So it allows me to return information to me. So I'm going to create a basic function. So, all right. So if I want to do cube and number, I want to do 2 to like the power of 5, right? And if I wanted to do that, I would use, let's see here, 2 to the power of 5. That's how you cube a number. So I'm going to do a function. So we're going to use def cube, and we can specify any parameter that we want to give it. We want to give it one function, which would be a num. So I do num and I do colon. Then down here, I can put in the code that I want to include in this function. So it's going to cube this number. So it's going to num times num, and it's going to, so cube, and if I pass it 3 and I run the code, I see nothing happen. When we call this cube function, it didn't do anything. So if I want to print it, so let's see, it said none. So it's supposed to be cubing a number. So if I want to do return, right? When I call this cube function, it's going to go off and it's going to see this return statement and it's going to give this value back to whoever called this function. So when I print out cube 3, it should put out the answer. It says 27. I can do that with anything. So if I do 6 to 16, so it allows us to return values back. So if I want to create a variable, I can do result equal to cube 5. So if I do result, let's see, 125, because that's the value it's storing, right? So I'm not able to put any code after this return statement. So if I do print print me. When it see that return, when it sees this, it's going to break out. It's not even going to get to there, right? So you can return a boolean, a string, an array. It really doesn't matter. So now we're going to go over if statements. It's allowing our program to make decisions, and if certain conditions are true, it can execute code and it can respond to the input that it's given. So depending on the data that we're using, it can respond with certain data. So 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 I'll give you an example without code, so you can see what I'm saying. All right, I go to sleep, and this is like similar to like pseudocode, right? I go to sleep if I'm tired. I go to bed. Then I can do another one that says I go for a walk if it's sunny. Oh, otherwise, a raincoat. So that's similar to how a function, I mean, not a function, but a conditional statement works. If something is true, then I do that. If it's not, I do this. So I'll demonstrate that here in code here in just a second. So all the time you're dealing with if statements. So I'll talk about some of the most common ones that you deal with in the everyday life. So this is a couple of if statements that people encounter on a daily basis. So this is a condition. So it's going to either be true or false. So if it's true, I'm gonna go to bed. If it's false, I just skip whatever and move on. If it's true, I do the action. Okay. Otherwise, we skip it. So I go to sleep if I'm tired. So if I go for a walk if it's sunny, I wear a tank top. Otherwise, I wear a raincoat. So if it's false, it's something else we want to do, right? So it's a little bit more complex. So so we're gonna go ahead and demonstrate that here. So I want to create an if statement. So this is really basic. Okay. So if I want to create a Boolean variable. So I'm gonna call YouTuber, and I can do true, right? So if I want to do an if statement, I want to say if, and I type in a condition, something that's going to be true. So if I'm hungry, or so if is YouTuber, it's got to be a true or false value. Okay. So this is not true or false condition. So do colons. I want to make a new line. So anything I put below this indentation is going to be executed if it's true. So I'm going to say print. All right. So if I run it, it's going to say right. So if I say false, it's not printing anything, right? And we can use else as well. It's another keyword. So this is like our otherwise. So I do else, do colon, and it's print. So now we can cover both. So we can make these more complex as well. You can put as much code as you want. Dozens of line of code. This is just a basic, simple example. So if I add another variable, I'll say, so I got two variables in the mix. So I can write a bunch of if statements. So I can use a couple different keywords. So or It's going to say if it's a YouTuber or it's a subscriber, one of these values will be true, if not both. All right. All right. So let's see. So let's say if I both equal to false. All right. We can use and as well. Both of these conditions will have to be true. Then we're going to execute. All right. You are neither. All right. So, right. So, so since they're both false, so if I make them both true, all right. So you're both. That's and or. So that's the basis of them. So I can add more conditions as well. But what if I want to check other something else? I can do a else if. I'm going to say and not. All right. And then I'll say, all right. So I could print out. All right. So let's run this and see what we get. Oh yeah. Then put my colors. And say you are both. So if I do false, see what it gets. Right. And not subscriber because that's true and that's false. So you can see how we can use if, else if as well to respond to different data. We can respond to any combination of these values. So we're using these simple Boolean variables, but we'll also use comparison operators as well to compare two numbers or two strings. So I'll show you in the next one.